Originally, I was just gonna do what I did last year, a hater's guide to the championship, dunking on the losers and glazing the winners. But one of those winners stood out to me. I can't figure out why. This bracket just doesn't look right. Why is he here? No, seriously, how the hell did he make it this far? Now, I know the literal answer. He won Nashville to make the playoffs, he won Atlanta to advance, and he won Vegas to make the championship. But I'm not talking about reality. I'm talking about this year, because between the highs and the many lows has been one of the craziest NASCAR seasons we've ever seen. And the craziest part may have yet to even happen. Either this weekend or next, I don't know when I'm uploading this video, Joey Logano will have a chance to win his third Cup Series championship. But something about this one feels different. Heading into the 2018 finale, he was 4th in points. Heading into the 2022 one, he was 2nd. Heading into this year's championship race, he's 15th. 15th in the season-long point standings, and yet he has a chance to win it all. What unholy amalgamation of occurrences could have possibly transpired to allow this? Well, I'll tell you. But before I do, I'd like to thank today's sponsor. Nah, just kidding. I'm making this one out of spite, because this year's NASCAR Cup Series championship has the potential to be the single most undeserved title, not just in racing, but the entire history of professional sports. And to find out why, we have to go back a couple of weeks. And to find out why we have to do that, we have to go back a couple of months. And to find out why we have to do that, we have to go back about a decade. Back to 2014, the year that NASCAR, for better or more likely worse, changed forever. This was the year that NASCAR adopted the elimination-style championship we see today. Kinda like the Core 4, but those sports involve just 2 teams playing each other. So how do you choose who gets eliminated when there's 40 teams? Alright, I don't want to explain NASCAR's crummy-ass point system again, but I feel like I have to. So if you're already in the know on the NASCAR playoffs, skip to here. I'm so tired of talking about this. Yeah, I mean, oh boy, it's time to talk about the NASCAR playoffs, yay! Once they begin with 10 races remaining, the field of championship-eligible drivers is cut to 16. Then, after 3 more races, it's cut down to 12, and then to 8, and then to 4, who are left to duke it out in one last winner-takes-all event. For the most part, it's based on points. If you earn more points, you'll move on, and if you earn less, you'll be dropped. Simple enough, but now we have to talk about the major monkey wrench in the system. The policy that, to many people, including myself, has turned the holy grail of American motorsport into an arbitrary token of momentary success. It's the policy of you win and you're in. I mean, you're in, you know what I mean. You see, even if you spend the other 25 races shitting the asphalt, just one win will guarantee you a spot in the playoffs. Except when it doesn't, but hey, that's a video for another day. And ipso facto, if you win a playoff race, you're guaranteed a spot in the next round. And finally, if you win the championship race as a championship contender, you are the champion. Okay, that one should have been obvious. This is why, in the NASCAR playoffs, race wins are everything. They're the golden ticket, the only surefire assurance that your season will continue. And if we compare that policy to our 4 major sports, mostly the NFL, it makes sense. You literally have to win in order to move on. But these are not the same sports. The only thing out of a football team's control is the weather and Patrick Mahomes sticking his hand up the referee's ass. But in NASCAR, everything, from the rain to the snow to the wind to the fog to a trackside fire to a rogue fan to a random piece of debris to a rodent with a death wish to a giant inflatable orange, everything has the power to alter the outcome. And the most common intrusion is this: some mid-pack Michael who just ran 98% of the race squeaky clean and without incident, inexplicably losing a tire or a motor or their God-given ability to drive right before the leader can get to the finish. It's more common than you might think, and we'll see some examples later on. The point is that racing is random and chaotic. There are an infinite amount of things that can change the result, so when the outcome of a whole championship comes down to just one race, you get a postseason that reflects it. Random and chaotic. It might sound awesome, and yeah, sometimes it is, but most of the time, it just feels wrong, seeing a long-term reward given for short-lived success. With that being said, let's take a look at Joey Logano's playoff performances. Because believe me when I say, nobody has benefited more from their existence than Giggles Logano. Hot off the heels of his first season with Team Penske, the momentum kept on building for Joey in 2014. It was his first multi-win season, first time he was considered a true contender, and after winning the playoff races at Loudon and Kansas, he became one of the first 4 drivers to compete in the championship race. Unfortunately, it didn't go his way, but it was still a statement season, one that gave everyone a taste of what was to come in 2015. He won the Daytona 500, he won Watkins Glen and Bristol, he was seated just 3 points out of the lead, and he won 3 playoff races in a row, locking out the entire second round. With just 4 races remaining, he was far and away the title favorite. So what happened next?
Kansas takes him out! Logano around, bringing out the first caution. NASCAR has called this race official. Joey Logano, the luck not on his side in round 3.
If you didn't think karma was real, think again. After dumping Matt Kenseth to win Kansas, Logano got more than he bargained for back, derailing a surefire title run in about the most painful way possible. And that strife seemed to continue in 2016, when he could only muster one win during the regular season. He would pop off in the playoffs, however, scoring victories at Talladega and Phoenix, and in his second championship appearance, he looked to have a much better shot, until he ended Carl Edwards' career with 10 to go. Before you go on a commenting crusade, no, that was not technically Logano's fault, but hey, it still hurts. Despite rebounding and storming back through the field, he would fall just 3 spots shy of Jimmy Johnson, who would pick up his landmark 7th championship. Oh well, guess it's time to re-rack for 2017, when Logano would win at Richmond and lock himself in early, only to have it encumbered after his car didn't clear post-race inspection. But that was okay, he still had plenty of time. Surely a perennial title favorite could lock himself in the next 17 races. No, he would wind up finishing just 1 spot shy of making the playoffs at, of all places, Richmond.
Ironic.
In 2018, he didn't look a whole lot better. Once again, he could only muster 1 win during the regular season, but at least this time it actually counted toward the playoffs. And you could tell that this time around, he wouldn't be deterred. After forcing his way to the win at Martinsville, he'd compete in his 3rd championship race against an 8-win Kevin Harvick, an 8-win Kyle Busch, and a defending champ Martin Truex, who was still pretty PO'd over getting moved in Martinsville. Odds makers had Logano leagues below the other 3, and for good reason. He was the only one of them who hadn't won a championship, he was the only one of them who hadn't won this race, and overall, he just hadn't had as good of a season. Definitely the least deserving of the 4. I think you know how this goes.
It's Joey Logano who wins!
With that, Logano had finally beaten the system. Against arguably the toughest competition he ever had to face, Joey got the job done. And his momentum seemed to carry into 2019, as he would knock off 2 more wins and hold the points lead for the majority of the season. However, in shades of 2015, he would get bullied at Martinsville and never really recover, failing to nab a chance at defending his title. That must not have sat well with him in the offseason, because he would open 2020 by winning 2 of the first 4 races. Then, of course, Armageddon happened, which seemed to take some wind out of Logano's sails, as it would take another 7 months till he was back in victory lane. Thankfully, he did it at the best time possible, arrow blocking his way to a 4th championship appearance. Of all the finales he had competed in, this one felt like his strongest, as he led much of the early running and found himself back in the lead with under 50 to go. But like a bolt of blue and white lightning, Chase Elliott blew off the doors, stealing the championship right out from under him. To this day, Logano still refers to 2020 as the one that got away, his best chance at a chip that he just couldn't cop. Cut to 2021 and things are back to normal. 1 win during the regular season and a deep playoff run that falls flat in Martinsville. Then came 2022, when Logano seemed to find more footing in the next-gen car, knocking off 2 regular season wins. Oh boy, he's really putting it to him this time, and for the 3rd time, he would open the 3rd round with a win, guaranteeing his spot in the championship before anybody else. His competitors would end up being a 5-win Chase Elliott, a Christopher Bell fresh off of winning Martinsville, and a Ross Chastain fresh off of defying God. Joey was undoubtedly the quietest of the bunch, leading many people to doubt him heading into Phoenix. Need I go on?
Logano is a 2-time NASCAR Cup Series champion!
And since he was booty cheeks in 2023, we now find ourselves in the current season. And oh boy, is it checking all of the boxes. Winning 1 race during the regular season? Check. Winning the first race of the 3rd round to lock himself into the championship? Check. Making the championship race in an even-numbered year? Check. Oh, wow, that's actually really impressive. But I think we need to look closer, because as we pull back the curtain on Logano's successes, you might find an interesting pattern. In the closing laps of his 2018 championship, he was behind all of his competitors and only came back after a spin by Daniel Suarez with 20 to go. Or how about the 2016 championship, where the only reason he even had a shot to begin with was because of Dylan Lupton blowing a tire with 15 to go? Or how about 2020, when the cars were running limited horsepower and all he had to do was block a clearly faster Kevin Harvick who literally could not race him no matter how hard he tried? Logano's career has been a fruitful one, but make no mistake, there's also a lot of asterisks, and nowhere will you ever find more than in 2024. At this point, the halfway point of the season, Logano was still winless and just barely above the cut line. Just a couple more new winners and he would be out entirely, though that doesn't look to happen today. With 2 laps to go, Denny Hamlin's got it made, but of all the people to rain on his parade, it was Logano's teammate Austin Cindric who spun on the backstretch to set up another restart. This kicked off a near 1-hour stint where the race would resume only to have to restart again. again and again. It went so far over the original distance that the lead drivers, who were a mere 2 miles away from good finishes, had to pit for fuel and give up their spots to the back markers, which of course included Joey, who on the 5th attempt at overtime once again blocked his way to victory. Well, that's nice, but do you know where he would have been had those overtimes never happened? 14th. At the end of the allotted race distance, he was in 14th, and yet here he is, shredding on the guitar and locked into the postseason. Now, I wish I could say this was as bad as it gets, but alas, I'm not done. Fast forward to the Charlotte Roval, the last race in the second round, and Logano's once again in an unenviable spot. But this time, seemingly nothing saves him. No miraculous mechanical failure or sudden spin out from the guy running 30th. As the cars cross the finish line, Logano is eliminated. He's out. And for those who unplugged right then and there, that's what they'd believe. So imagine their surprise when they turn their TVs back on the following week, only to see Logano once again donning a yellow windshield banner. Did we just teleport to an alternate dimension? Well, it turns out that Alex Bowman, one of the guys who actually did move on, checked in a little too light in post-race inspection, so NASCAR dropped him to the rear of the field and gave his playoff spot to who else? Now Joey. He's a great racer, don't get me wrong, but if you don't think by now that he has the biggest golden horseshoe stuck up his ass that we've ever seen, then I don't know what to tell you. He was literally out, done, finito, eliminated, but somehow even that couldn't stop him. He had a newfound lease, a second chance at a title, and in the first race of round 3, he was making the absolute most of it by running in 11th and struggling to keep up with the leaders. Jesus, Joey. So as the rest of the field makes their final pit stops, Logano stays on the track to try and capitalize. He doesn't know if it'll work. He doesn't even know if he can make it on fuel, but he might as well try. Christopher Bell, who had dominated most of the race, closes up fast. Most assume that he'll catch him, but as the laps wind down and the gap stagnates, a hush falls on the crowd as they realize the impossible. He's not going to. And Joey Logano, for the 6th time in 10 years, because of a fuel strategy, will race for a championship.
Can you believe what you are seeing?
At this point, I can't keep doubting him. Not because he's actually that good, but because no matter how high the odds are stacked against him, no matter how many metrics say otherwise, he just makes it work. If Christopher Bell pits a few laps earlier, he likely doesn't make the championship. If Alex Bowman gains a little weight, he probably doesn't make the 3rd round. If Cindric can just keep his tires underneath him on a fucking straightaway, he probably misses the playoffs altogether. And yet in every step of the way, through every possible plight, things have worked out. Joey Logano once again will race for a championship. Though after everything we've seen, you might wonder why that surprises me. This is what he does. It's embedded in his DNA. But this year it feels different because, in all honesty, he should have never made it this far. In fact, he probably shouldn't have made it at all. Putting aside the golden horseshoe, Logano's season has been bad. Like his rookie year bad. Never have we seen him perform so poorly in his time in the 22, and the stats merely shine a spotlight on the struggle. On this graph, you'll see the average finish of every driver who's made the championship 4. Some excel in the single digits, while others dwell a little lower, but for the most part, they stay confined to this range, about 9th through 12th. And then there's Logano, averaging a 17.8. His supposed championship-worthy season hasn't just been worse, it clears the rest of them by a significant margin. So no. To all of you saying that the worst championship contender was Ryan Newman in 2014, that's not true. Joey Logano in 2024 is the single worst championship contender in NASCAR history. Even at Homestead, as I'm writing this video, the other 7 playoff drivers are 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. So where's Logano? 20th. Dude, I know you're already locked in, but come on, lock in. These 2 leaderboards are the perfect encapsulation of Logano's 2024 run. If it was 20 years ago, hell, if it was 10 years ago, he'd be done. By every conceivable metric, he should be out of contention. He shouldn't be here. He shouldn't have made it this far. He can't go further. This can't keep happening. He cannot win this championship. Can he? Well, let's find out.